It was a Thursday night behind Murphy's Roadhouse, a dive bar where the parking lot smelled like motor oil and spilled whiskey. The kind of place where questions weren't asked and fights were settled in the back alley. Wyatt Reaper Cross was checking the straps on his Harley's saddlebag when he heard it. A child's sob, broken and terrified, cutting through the rumble of highway traffic in the distance. Wyatt's head snapped up instantly. 15 years as VP of the Devil's Brotherhood MC had honed his instincts to razor sharpness. He knew the difference between a drunk stumbling out of the bar and genuine terror. This was the latter. He turned toward the sound, his leather vest creaking as he moved, the club patches on his back marking him as one of the most dangerous men in 3 counties. But before he could take more than 2 steps, a little girl appeared from behind a dumpster, running awkwardly on unsteady legs, looking back over her shoulder with wild eyes. She was maybe 6 years old, blonde hair tangled and matted, face streaked with dirt and tears, clutching a worn teddy bear to her chest like it was her only possession in the world. And she was running straight at him. "Pretend you're my daddy," she gasped, crashing into his legs and wrapping her small arms around his thigh. "Please, please, he's coming for me." Wyatt froze. In his entire life, no one had ever looked at him and seen safety. He was the enforcer, the weapon the club pointed at problems that needed to disappear. He was the man cops tried to pin murders on, the monster mothers warned their children about in parking lots. His hands had broken bones, and his reputation had ended lives. But this little girl was holding on to him like he was the only thing standing between her and hell itself. If this moment grabbed you, drop a comment saying, "Protect Mia." Then Wyatt saw him. A man emerged from the shadows near the back door of the bar, moving with deliberate calm. He was in his 40s, clean-cut in dark jeans and a button-down shirt, the kind of ordinary that made him invisible in a crowd. But his eyes weren't ordinary. They were cold, calculating, scanning the parking lot like a predator tracking wounded prey. When they landed on Wyatt and the girl, they narrowed with irritation. The child pressed herself behind Wyatt's leg, her whole body shaking. She was trying to make herself smaller, invisible. "He took me from Mama," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He said he'd sell me. Please don't let him take me." Something primal ignited in Wyatt's chest, not just anger but something older, deeper. His alpha instincts roared to life, flooding his system with territorial rage. This wasn't just a child in danger. Something about her scent, faint beneath the fear and dirt, pulled at him in a way he'd never experienced. He stepped forward, placing his 6'4" frame between the girl and the approaching man. His tattooed arms hanging loose at his sides, ready. The man stopped about 10 feet away, his expression shifting into something practiced and false, a concerned smile that didn't reach his dead eyes. "Mia, sweetheart," he said smoothly, his voice dripping with fake warmth. "You're scaring me running off like that. Come here, baby." The girl's fingernails dug into the back of Wyatt's jeans, her breath coming in panicked gasps. Wyatt's voice came out low and lethal, the kind of tone that made grown men reconsider their life choices. "She's not going anywhere with you." The man's smile didn't waver, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "I appreciate your concern, friend, but this is a family matter. I'm her father. She's just upset because she can't find her mother right now. Kids, you know how they get." Wyatt didn't blink. His instincts were screaming. The man's body language was all wrong, too controlled, too rehearsed. The girl's terror was too real, too raw. And that scent. "That's so." Wyatt's hand moved to his belt, fingers brushing the handle of the knife he always carried. "Then you won't mind waiting here while I call someone to verify that." The man's mask slipped for just a second, something cold and vicious flashing across his face. "I don't think that's necessary." "I think it is," Wyatt cut him off, his voice dropping to a growl that made the threat explicit. "See, I've got a feeling you're lying. And I really, really don't like men who lie about little girls." The tension in the alley thickened, the air crackling with the promise of violence. The man's hand twitched toward his jacket pocket. Wyatt saw it, the tell of someone reaching for a weapon. That was all the confirmation he needed. "You've got 3 seconds to walk away," Wyatt said, his alpha presence expanding, filling the space with raw dominance. "Or I'm going to make you wish you'd never seen this parking lot." The man hesitated, his predator's calculation working overtime. He was sizing up Wyatt, the size, the scars, the club vest, the absolute certainty in those cold eyes that promised death without hesitation. Behind them, the bar door opened, and 2 more Devil's Brotherhood members stepped out, alerted by the tension. They took one look at the scene and moved to flank Wyatt without a word. The man's jaw tightened. He'd lost his advantage and he knew it. "This isn't over," he said quietly, the fake warmth gone, replaced by barely controlled rage. "Yeah, it is," Wyatt replied. "You just don't know it yet." The man backed away slowly, his eyes locked on Wyatt's until he reached a dark sedan parked in the corner of the lot. He got in, engine starting with a low rumble, but before he drove off, he pulled something from his pocket, a phone, and held it up for just a moment as if making a point. Then he was gone. Wyatt stood there for a long moment, his heart pounding with adrenaline and something else, something that felt like purpose, like destiny. The little girl was still clinging to him, her sobs quieter now but no less desperate. He crouched down, making himself smaller, less threatening, and for the first time in his life, Wyatt Cross tried to be gentle. "What's your name, little one?" Mia," she hiccuped. "I'm Wyatt. You're safe now, Mia. I promise." The words came out rough, unpracticed, but they carried the weight of absolute truth. She looked up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Are you really going to be my daddy?" Something in Wyatt's chest cracked open. He didn't know how to answer that. Didn't know what he was capable of. But looking down at this terrified child who'd chosen him, of all people, to trust. "Yeah," he heard himself say. "Yeah, I am." He had no idea how right those words would turn out to be, or that the moment he claimed this child, he'd also be claiming the fated mate he never knew he was searching for. The hunt was just beginning. The sedan's taillights hadn't even disappeared around the corner before Wyatt's phone was in his hand, his thumb hovering over Crow's number. But something made him stop. That phone. The way Bennett had held it up, deliberate, taunting. Like he wanted Wyatt to know he wasn't working alone. Like he wanted Wyatt to understand that this was bigger than one scared little girl in a parking lot. "Boss!" Ripper, one of his brothers, stepped closer, his hand still resting on the grip of his piece. "Want us to follow him?" Wyatt shook his head, his jaw tight. "He'll be watching for a tail. We need to figure out what we're dealing with first." He looked down at Mia, who was still pressed against his leg, her teddy bear crushed between them. "Hey Mia, I need you to be really brave and tell me about the man who took you. Can you do that?" She nodded, her lower lip trembling. "His name is Bennett. He came to the park where Mama took me. He said Mama sent him to pick me up because she was sick. But then he put me in his car and he wouldn't let me out and he kept making phone calls and saying," her voice broke, "saying someone was going to pay a lot of money for me." White-hot rage flooded through Wyatt's veins, the kind that made his vision narrow and his hands shake with the need to destroy something. When he forced himself to breathe, to stay calm for the child clinging to him. But inside, his alpha nature was howling for blood. "Where's your mama now, sweetheart?" "I don't know. Bennett said she was looking for me," he said. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "He said if she called the police, he'd make sure I disappeared forever. He made me talk to her on the phone and tell her I was okay, but I wasn't okay." "You're okay now," Wyatt said firmly, crouching down again to meet her eyes. "I've got you. Nobody's taking you anywhere. You understand me?" She nodded, hiccuping through her tears. Wyatt straightened, his mind already working through tactical possibilities. If Bennett was confident enough to approach them head-on, even with backup present, it meant he either had serious muscle behind him or he was desperate enough not to care about the consequences. Either scenario was dangerous. And if the mother was still out there, being hunted? Ripper, take Mia inside. Get her some food, something to drink. Don't let her out of your sight. He looked at Tank, his sergeant at arms, a mountain of a man with arms like tree trunks. You're with me. We're going to have a chat with our friend Bennett. But before they could move, headlights swept across the parking lot. The same dark sedan coming back around. This time it didn't slow down. It accelerated, engine roaring as it barreled straight toward them. Get her inside now, Wyatt roared, shoving Mia toward Ripper, who scooped her up and sprinted for the bar entrance. Wyatt and Tank dove in opposite directions as the sedan screamed past, close enough that Wyatt felt the displacement of air, smelled burning rubber. The car skidded to a halt 20 feet away, driver's door already opening. Bennett stepped out, but he wasn't alone this time. 2 other men emerged from the passenger side, both carrying the kind of cold competence that marked them as professionals. Not street thugs. Not amateurs. These were men who knew how to hurt people for money. You made a mistake, biker, Bennett called out. His voice steady now, the fake warmth completely gone. All that remained was calculated menace. That merchandise belongs to my client. You're interfering with a very lucrative business arrangement. Wyatt straightened slowly, his hands loose at his sides, every muscle coiled and ready. Merchandise. You're calling a 6-year-old child merchandise. I'm calling her what she is. Commodity. And her mother is about to join her on the auction block if you don't hand her over right now. Bennett smiled, and it was the smile of a man who'd done terrible things and never lost a night's sleep over any of them. See, the buyer specifically requested a matched set. Mother and daughter. Blonde. Pretty. Innocent. They're going to make someone very happy overseas. The rage that had been simmering in Wyatt's chest exploded into a wildfire. His alpha nature surged forward, no longer contained, and the air around him seemed to thicken with predatory dominance. He took a step forward, and something in his movement made Bennett's hired muscle exchange uncertain glances. You've got one chance, Wyatt said, his voice dropping to a lethal rumble that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. Tell me where the mother is. Tell me who you're working for. And maybe, I'll let you keep your life. Bennett laughed, but it was forced, brittle. You think you scare me? I've dealt with worse than some small-time MC enforcer. You have no idea who you're. Wyatt moved. He closed the distance between them in 3 strides, faster than a man his size should be able to move. Bennett's muscle reached for their weapons, but Tank was already there, his massive fist connecting with the first man's jaw with a crack that echoed off the brick walls. The second man got his gun halfway out before Wyatt's hand clamped around his wrist with crushing force, twisting, breaking. The weapon clattered to the pavement. Bennett stumbled backward, finally showing real fear, but Wyatt was on him. He grabbed Bennett by the collar and slammed him against the sedan's hood hard enough to dent the metal. The mother, Wyatt growled, his face inches from Bennett's. Where? I don't know exactly. They're tracking her phone. She's been moving, hiding. Bennett's words tumbled out in a panicked rush. The team's supposed to grab her tonight, bring her to the warehouse on Industrial Road, the old meat processing plant. Wyatt's hand moved to Bennett's jacket pocket, fingers finding the phone he'd seen earlier. He yanked it free, released Bennett's collar and stepped back. Bennett slumped against the car, gasping. The phone's screen lit up at Wyatt's touch. No password. Floppy. Or arrogant. Probably both. He scrolled through the messages, his blood running colder with each one he read. Special order confirmed. Package 1 acquired. Package 2 location tracking active. Buyer wiring final payment on delivery of both units. Target last seen near Riverside Motel. Team en route. Bidding at $125,000 for the pair. Client wants them pristine. The most recent message was from 10 minutes ago. Package 1 lost. Investigating. May need cleanup. Wyatt looked up at Bennett, and whatever Bennett saw in his eyes made the man try to scramble backward over the hood of his car. You're going to tell me everything, Wyatt said quietly. Every name, every location, every piece of this network. And then you're going to pray that when I'm done with you, I'm still human enough to let the law have what's left. Bennett opened his mouth, maybe to bargain, maybe to threaten, but Wyatt's expression stopped him cold. Start talking, Wyatt commanded. Because somewhere out there, that little girl's mother is running for her life, and you're going to help me find her before your team does. And as Bennett began to spill everything he knew, Wyatt felt that strange pull again, stronger now. The same instinct that had made him protect Mia was screaming at him that he needed to find this woman, this Olivia, that his world was about to change in ways he couldn't begin to understand. His fated mate was out there, alone and hunted, and he was going to burn down anyone who stood between them. If this story has held you this long, subscribing is how you help it continue. Thank you. Now back to the story. The Devil's Brotherhood clubhouse sat 3 miles outside city limits, a sprawling compound of corrugated metal and concrete that had been fortified over decades. Razor wire crowned the perimeter fence. Security cameras watched every angle. It was a fortress, and tonight, it would become a sanctuary. Wyatt carried Mia through the front door himself, ignoring the startled looks from the brothers gathered in the common room. A child hadn't crossed this threshold in years, maybe ever. The club dealt in protection, enforcement, and occasionally violence. It wasn't a place for innocence. But the moment Wyatt walked in with the little girl cradled against his chest, her teddy bear clutched between them, something shifted in the air. Church, Wyatt called out, his voice carrying the weight of command. 5 minutes. Everyone. He took Mia to the back office, the one room in the compound that had a couch and wasn't stained with beer or blood. Rosie, the club's old lady who ran the bar and kept the books, appeared in the doorway with a blanket and a glass of milk before Wyatt could even ask. Poor baby, Rosie murmured, her weathered face softening as she draped the blanket around Mia's shoulders. You're safe here, sweetheart. Nobody gets through these walls. Nobody. Mia looked up at Wyatt, her eyes wide and uncertain. You're not leaving me, are you? Something twisted in his chest. I have to go find your mama. But Rosie's going to stay right here with you. And there are 15 of the meanest, toughest men you've ever seen standing between you and that door. You're safe. I promise. But what if he comes back? What if? Wyatt knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. Mia, look at me. Nobody is taking you anywhere. Ever. Do you understand? I'm going to get your mama, and I'm going to make sure that man and everyone working with him never hurts another person again. She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. I trust you, Wyatt. Those words hit him harder than any punch he'd ever taken. Trust. When had anyone ever given him that so freely? He reached out and gently touched the top of her head, his massive hand almost covering her blonde hair entirely. And that's when he felt it again. That scent. Faint but undeniable, clinging to her clothes, her skin. Honey and rain. Wildflowers and something sweeter. Something that made his alpha instincts surge with recognition. His fated mate. The realization struck him like lightning, stealing his breath. The scent wasn't Mia's. It was her mother's. Olivia. The bond was trying to form through the child, calling to him across the distance, demanding that he find her, claim her, protect her. Wyatt stood abruptly, his heart pounding. He'd heard the stories his whole life. Every alpha knew about fated mates, that pull that transcended logic and choice. He just never believed it would happen to him. Men like him didn't get gifts from the universe. They got scars and regrets. But this was real. Boss! Crow appeared in the doorway. Everyone's assembled. Wyatt forced himself to focus. The bond would have to wait. Right now, Olivia was running for her life, and every second he wasted was a second Bennett's team got closer to her. He strode into the main room where his brothers had gathered. 15 men, each one a warrior in their own right, each one bound to the club by blood and loyalty. They looked at him expectantly, reading the tension in his stance. "We've got a situation," Wyatt began, his voice hard and steady. "Human trafficking ring operating in our territory. They snatched a 6-year-old girl 3 days ago." He gestured toward the office. "That's her. Mia. I took her from one of their handlers tonight. Now they're hunting her mother." Murmurs rippled through the room. Crow stepped forward, his weathered face darkening with anger. "Trafficking? In our backyard? Industrial Road. Old meat processing plant. That's their warehouse." Wyatt pulled out Bennett's phone, holding it up. "I've got their communications, their tracking data on the mother, and a list of buyers. This isn't small time. This is organized, well-funded, and they've been operating under our noses." Tank cracked his knuckles, the sound like gunshots in the tense room. "So we burn it down." "We burn it down," Wyatt confirmed. "But first we get the mother. Her name's Olivia. They've got a team tracking her phone, closing in on her position right now." He paused, something shifting in his expression. "And she's mine." Silence fell. Every alpha in the room understood what that meant. Fated mate. The words didn't need to be spoken. Crow's eyes widened slightly. "You sure, brother?" "I'm sure." Wyatt's voice dropped to a growl. "Her scent is all over the kid. The bond's already pulling. I need to find her, Crow. Not just because she's in danger. Because she's mine, and I'll tear this city apart before I let them take what's mine." The room erupted in movement. Brothers grabbed weapons, pulled on gear, checked their bikes. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This was an alpha claiming his mate, and the entire Devil's Brotherhood would ride to war for that. Ripper strapped a shotgun across his back. "What's the play?" Wyatt pulled up the tracking data on Bennett's phone. A red dot pulsed on the screen, moving slowly through the eastern part of the city. "She's near Riverside. Moving on foot, probably trying to stay off main roads. Bennett's team is converging from 2 directions." He traced the routes with his finger. "We split into 2 units. Tank, you take half the brothers and intercept the team coming from the north. Cut them off, shut them down. The rest come with me. We find Olivia first. And if we encounter resistance?" Crow asked, though the smile on his face suggested he already knew the answer. "Then they learn why people cross the street when they see our patches." Wyatt's eyes blazed with predatory intensity. "No mercy. No prisoners. Anyone working with this network signed their death warrant the moment they put their hands on that little girl." He looked around the room, meeting each brother's eyes. These men had ridden with him through hell and back. They'd bled together, fought together, survived together. But this was different. This was personal in a way that transcended club business. "My fated mate is out there alone and terrified," Wyatt said quietly, the words carrying the weight of absolute truth. "And I'm going to bring her home. You with me?" The roar of approval shook the walls. "Then let's ride." The compound erupted in the thunder of Harley engines firing to life, 15 motorcycles rolling out into the night. Wyatt led the pack, his bike screaming down the highway toward the city, toward the woman whose scent was burned into his memory, whose child trusted him, whose fate was now irrevocably bound to his own. Somewhere in the darkness, Olivia was running. But she wouldn't have to run much longer. Her alpha was coming. The tracking dot had stopped moving. Wyatt's jaw clenched as he stared at Bennett's phone mounted to his handlebars, the red pulse frozen at a condemned apartment complex on the edge of the industrial district. Either Olivia had gone to ground, or they were already too late. He refused to believe the latter. The Brotherhood's bikes rumbled to a stop 3 blocks out, engines cutting to silence. Wyatt dismounted, his senses sharpening to predator-level awareness. The night air carried the usual city rot, exhaust fumes, garbage, decay. But underneath it all, faint and desperate, he caught it. Honey and rain. She was close. "Crow, take the east side. Ripper, cover the rear exit." Wyatt's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried command. "I'm going in the front. Anyone tries to stop you, put them down quiet." His brothers melted into the shadows, weapons drawn, moving with the practiced efficiency of men who'd run tactical operations in worse conditions. Wyatt approached the apartment building alone, every nerve ending alive with anticipation and rage. The front entrance hung open, the lock shattered. Fresh damage. Bennett's team had already breached. Wyatt moved through the darkened hallway like a ghost, his boots silent on the stained carpet. Apartment 2B. The door was ajar, light spilling through the crack. He heard voices inside. Male, professional, calm. The kind of calm that came from men who did terrible things for money and never questioned the work. Has to be here somewhere. The signal's coming from this unit. Check the bedroom again. Client wants her alive and unmarked. He's paying premium for undamaged goods. Wyatt's vision went red. His hand closed around the door handle, and with one explosive motion, he kicked it open. The room beyond was a nightmare of poverty. Peeling wallpaper, a broken couch, a single flickering bulb. Two men in tactical gear spun toward him, hands reaching for weapons. Wyatt didn't give them the chance. He was on the first one in 2 strides, his fist connecting with the man's throat in a strike that crushed his windpipe. The man went down choking, his gun clattering uselessly to the floor. The second man got his weapon up, finger squeezing the trigger, but Wyatt was already inside his guard. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted until bones snapped, then drove his elbow into the man's temple. The trafficker dropped like a stone. Silence fell, broken only by the first man's wet, dying gasps. "Olivia," Wyatt called out, his voice rough but controlled. "My name is Wyatt. I have your daughter. Mia's safe. You can come out." Nothing. Only the sound of his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. Then from the bedroom a whisper. You're lying," Bennett said. "Bennett's done. I took Mia from him tonight. She's at my clubhouse, protected by my brothers. She asked me to find you." Wyatt took a slow step forward, hands visible, non-threatening. "She's scared and she needs her mama. Please, let me see you." A moment passed. Then the bedroom door opened a crack, and Wyatt's entire world tilted on its axis. She stood in the doorway, backlit by the dim light from a broken window. Blonde hair tangled and dirty, falling past her shoulders. Her clothes were torn, her face bruised and streaked with tears. But her eyes, those eyes were the color of summer sky, wide with terror and desperate hope. And her scent hit him like a physical blow. Honey and rain and wildflowers and home. The bond snapped into place with such force that Wyatt actually staggered. It wasn't just recognition. It was completion. Like every broken piece of his soul had suddenly found its match, its purpose. The predator inside him roared with possessive fury, demanding he claim her, protect her, destroy anyone who'd ever hurt her. "Mia," Olivia breathed, her voice cracking. "Is she really? She's safe. I swear it on my life." Wyatt forced himself to stay still, to not rush forward and terrify her more than she already was. But every instinct screamed at him to close the distance, to pull her into his arms, to never let her out of his sight again. Olivia took a trembling step forward, and that's when Wyatt saw the extent of the damage. Bruises on her wrists where she'd been restrained. A cut above her eyebrow. The haunted exhaustion of someone who'd been running and hiding for days without sleep or safety. "They took her from the park," Olivia whispered, her voice hollow. "I turned my back for 1 second and she was gone. Bennett called me, said if I contacted the police, if I did anything but wait for instructions, he'd kill her. He made me talk to her on the phone, made me tell her everything was okay when it wasn't, when I was dying inside." Her voice broke completely, and she collapsed against the doorframe, sobs racking her body. Wyatt crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, his arms coming around her before conscious thought caught up with instinct. She stiffened for a heartbeat, then crumpled against him, her hands fisting in his leather vest as if he were the only solid thing in a world that had betrayed her. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair, the words rough with emotion he didn't know he was capable of feeling. "You're safe now." Both of you. I promise you, Olivia, nobody's ever going to hurt you or your daughter again. She looked up at him, and in her eyes he saw the moment she felt it too. The bond. The recognition. Her pupils dilated, her breath catching, and Wyatt watched awareness bloom across her tear-stained face. She breathed. You're an alpha. You're alpha, he confirmed, the words coming out as a growl. If you'll have me. Before she could answer, footsteps thundered in the hallway outside. Wyatt spun, placing himself between Olivia and the door, his body a shield. But it was Crow who appeared in the doorway. Blood splattered across his vest. We got 3 more trying to breach the back. Tank's team just radioed. They intercepted the north unit. 5 down, 2 running scared. Crow's eyes flicked to Olivia, then back to Wyatt, and understanding crossed his face. Boss, we need to move. More could be coming. Wyatt nodded. He turned back to Olivia, and this time he let her see everything. The predator, the protector, the alpha who would burn the world down for her. Can you ride with me? She straightened, wiping her eyes, and he saw steel beneath the fear. This woman was a fighter. Broken maybe, but not defeated. Take me to my daughter. Wyatt held out his hand. She took it, her fingers small and cold in his, and the moment their skin touched, the bond flared brighter, sealing something ancient and unbreakable between them. Then let's go home, he said. And as they walked out of that nightmare apartment into the night where his brothers waited, Wyatt knew with absolute certainty that his life had just changed forever. He'd found his fated mate. He'd found his family. Now he just had to make sure no one ever threatened them again. The reunion happened in the clubhouse office, and Wyatt knew he'd remember it for the rest of his life. The moment Mia saw her mother, she launched herself across the room with a cry that was equal parts joy and anguish. Olivia caught her daughter, sinking to her knees, both of them sobbing as they clung to each other like drowning victims finally reaching shore. Wyatt stood in the doorway, his chest tight with something he couldn't name. This was what he'd been put on this earth to protect. Not territory or club interests or reputation. A mother and daughter who'd been torn apart by monsters and needed someone strong enough to stand between them and the darkness. Olivia looked up at him over Mia's shoulder, tears streaming down her face, and mouthed 2 words. Thank you. He nodded once, then stepped back to give them privacy. But before he could close the door, Mia's voice stopped him. Wyatt, you're not leaving, are you? He turned back. Both of them were looking at him now, and the fear in their eyes, the fear that he might disappear, might abandon them, cut deeper than any knife ever had. No, he said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. But I have one more thing I need to do first. Olivia stood, understanding dawning in her eyes. The warehouse. They'll regroup if I don't end this tonight. Find new victims. Set up somewhere else. Wyatt's voice hardened to steel. I can't let that happen. She crossed to him, Mia still in her arms, and looked up at him with those summer sky eyes. Then finish it. Make them pay for what they did to my baby. The alpha in him roared with approval. His mate wasn't asking him to show mercy. She was giving him permission to do what needed to be done. I will, he promised. And when I come back, we're going to talk about what comes next. For all of us. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining, and the bond between them pulsed with certainty. We'll be waiting. 20 minutes later, Wyatt stood in the shadows across from the old meat processing plant on Industrial Road, 15 brothers at his back. The warehouse was a hulking structure of rusted metal and broken windows, but lights blazed inside, and vehicles filled the parking lot. Bennett had been busy making calls. They knew someone was coming. But let them be ready. It wouldn't matter. Tank, you take the south entrance with 5 men. Crow, the loading docks with 5 more. I'm going through the front. Wyatt checked his weapon, then looked at his brothers. No one gets out. This network dies tonight, and everyone associated with it goes down with it. Understood. A chorus of grim acknowledgments answered him. Then let's send these bastards to hell. They moved as one, a coordinated strike force that had run operations like this in 3 countries. But this time it was different. This time it was personal. Wyatt felt his alpha nature blazing at full intensity, lending him strength and speed and predatory focus that made him more force of nature than man. The front doors exploded inward under Tank's battering ram. Wyatt poured through the breach, weapon raised, and the warehouse erupted into chaos. Men scattered, reaching for guns. Wyatt dropped 2 before they could even aim. Beside him, Crow moved like liquid death, taking down a trafficker with a knife to the throat. The warehouse filled with the sound of gunfire and screaming and the brutal efficiency of the Brotherhood doing what it did best. Wyatt moved through the carnage with singular focus, his senses tracking one scent, one target. Bennett was here. He could feel it. He found him in the office at the back, surrounded by 3 bodyguards. They opened fire the moment Wyatt kicked in the door, but he was already moving, using the metal desk for cover. Ripper appeared behind him, returning fire, and between them they cut through the bodyguards in seconds. Bennett stood against the far wall, a gun in his shaking hand. His earlier arrogance replaced by raw terror. "You don't know what you're doing. The people I work for, they'll come after you after your club. Let them come." Wyatt rose from cover, walking forward slowly, deliberately. "You took a child from her mother. You put your hands on what's mine. And now you're going to answer for it." Bennett fired. The shot went wild, panic ruining his aim. Wyatt didn't even flinch. He closed the distance, ripped the gun from Bennett's hand, and wrapped his fingers around the man's throat. "Please," Bennett choked out. "Please, I was just doing my job. I can give you names, locations, everything." "I don't want names," Wyatt growled, his eyes blazing with alpha fury. "I want you to understand something before you die. That little girl you took, she's my daughter now. That woman you hunted, she's my mate. And no one touches my family and lives to tell the tale." Bennett's eyes widened with the realization that there would be no mercy, no bargaining, no escape. "This is for Mia," Wyatt said quietly. The sound of Bennett's neck snapping echoed through the office. Wyatt let the body drop, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. He turned to find Crow in the doorway, blood-spattered but unharmed. "Warehouse is clear. We found holding cells in the basement. 3 other women locked up. Tank's getting them medical attention and calling in our contacts at the DA's office." Crow's expression was grim. "This was bigger than we thought, boss. They've been running this operation for years." "Not anymore." Wyatt looked back at Bennett's corpse one last time. "Burn it. All of it. Every file, every record, every piece of evidence that this place ever existed. And then we disappear into the night. What about the authorities? The women will talk. They'll have enough to dismantle whatever's left of this network." Wyatt moved toward the door, suddenly exhausted, the adrenaline finally draining away. "But we don't exist. We were never here." Crow nodded. "What now?" Wyatt thought of Olivia and Mia waiting for him at the clubhouse. Thought of the bond that had changed everything, the family he'd never expected to find. Thought of the life that was possible now, if he was brave enough to reach for it. "Now I go home," he said. "And I claim what's mine." Behind them, the warehouse began to burn, flames consuming the evidence of horrors that would never happen again. Wyatt walked out into the night, leaving death and destruction in his wake, and headed toward the one thing that had ever felt like salvation. His fated mate was waiting. His daughter was safe. And for the first time in his violent, brutal life, Wyatt Cross had something worth living for instead of just something worth killing for. The war was over. It was time to go home. Dawn was breaking over the compound when Wyatt returned, the sky painted in shades of amber and rose that seemed too beautiful for a night that had been soaked in blood and violence. He dismounted his Harley slowly, every muscle aching, the scent of smoke and gunpowder still clinging to his leather vest. But underneath it all, he could still smell her. Honey and Rain, his mate, calling him home. The clubhouse was quiet, most of the brothers having crashed after the raid. But Rosie was waiting on the front steps, a knowing smile on her weathered face. "They're in your room," she said softly. "Haven't slept. Just been holding each other and waiting for you." Wyatt's throat tightened. His room. The one place in this compound that had always been a cell, cold and empty and devoid of anything except the tools of his trade. Now it held everything that mattered. He climbed the stairs to the second floor, his boots heavy on the worn wood. The door to his room was cracked open, and through the gap he could see them. Olivia sat on his bed with Mia curled against her, both of them dozing fitfully. His mate had one arm wrapped protectively around their daughter, her other hand resting near the knife he knew Rosie had given her. Even exhausted, even in the safest place she could be, she was still ready to fight. His Omega. His warrior. Wyatt pushed the door open slowly, and Olivia's eyes snapped open immediately, her hand moving toward the weapon. Then she saw him, and everything in her expression shifted. Relief, hope, and something deeper. Something that looked like coming home. "It's done," he said quietly. "Bennett's dead. The warehouse is ash. The network's broken." Mia stirred, blinking sleepily, then launched herself at him with a cry of, "Wyatt!" He caught her easily, lifting her into his arms, and she wrapped herself around him like she'd never let go. "You came back," she whispered against his neck. "You promised and you came back." "Always," he rumbled. "I'll always come back to you. Both of you." Olivia stood, crossing to them, and when Wyatt opened his arm she stepped into his embrace without hesitation. The three of them stood there in the doorway, holding each other as the sunrise spilled through the window, and Wyatt felt something in his chest crack wide open. Not breaking. Expanding. Making room for feelings he'd spent a lifetime convinced he was incapable of. "What happens now?" Olivia asked, her voice muffled against his chest. Wyatt set Mia down gently, then took Olivia's face in his hands, tilting her head back so he could meet those summer sky eyes. "Now I claim you. Both of you. It's mine. If you'll have me." She searched his face, and he let her see everything. The violence he was capable of. The darkness that lived inside him. But also the protection, the loyalty, the desperate need to keep them safe and cherished and loved. "I'm not an easy man," he continued, his voice rough with honesty. "I've done things that would make you run if you knew all the details. I'm a biker, an enforcer, and I've got more blood on my hands than I can count. But I swear to you, Olivia, I will spend every day of my life making sure you and Mia never have to be afraid again. I'll be the wall between you and anything that tries to hurt you. I'll be the father she deserves and the mate you need. If you'll let me." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling. "You already saved us. You already became her father the moment she asked you to pretend. And this," she pressed her hand over his heart, over the place where the bond thrummed between them. "This isn't pretend. This is real. This is fated. And yes, Wyatt Cross, I'll have you. We both will." The bond exploded between them, no longer just a pull but a complete fusion, sealing them together in a way that transcended flesh and bone. Wyatt kissed her then, pouring everything he couldn't say into that single moment of connection. She kissed him back with equal intensity, her hands fisting in his vest, claiming him as surely as he was claiming her. When they finally broke apart, Mia was looking up at them with wide, hopeful eyes. "Does this mean you're really going to be my daddy? Forever?" Wyatt knelt down, bringing himself to her level. "Forever," he confirmed. "If that's what you want." She threw her arms around his neck. "That's what I want. I knew it the moment I saw you. I knew you were supposed to be mine." Something about those words, coming from a 6-year-old who'd been through hell and still had the courage to trust, broke the last of Wyatt's defenses. He held her close, this child who'd chosen him, and made a vow that went deeper than words. A knock on the doorframe interrupted the moment. Crow stood there, the entire brotherhood assembled behind him in the hallway. Every brother was watching, waiting, and Wyatt realized this was more than just a personal moment. This was a turning point for the entire club. He stood, Mia in his arms, Olivia at his side, and faced his brothers. "Things are going to change around here," Wyatt announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "We've always protected our territory, defended our interests, handled our business. But from now on we protect the innocent. The ones who can't protect themselves. Women like Olivia. Children like Mia. People the world has abandoned or forgotten." Murmurs rippled through the assembled brothers, but no dissent. They'd all seen what trafficking had done. They'd all felt the rage of watching predators hunt the vulnerable. "The Devil's Brotherhood rides for the outcasts," Wyatt continued. "We always have. But now we ride for those who need us most. We become the shield for the defenseless. The nightmare for anyone who thinks they can hurt the innocent and get away with it." He looked down at Mia, then at Olivia. "Because I've learned something tonight. Being strong isn't about how much damage you can do. It's about what you choose to protect." Crow stepped forward, a grin splitting his weathered face. "You asking us to go soft, boss?" "I'm asking you to go harder," Wyatt shot back. "To be smart enough, strong enough, and mean enough to stand between monsters and their victims. To make sure what happened to my family never happens to anyone else on our watch." Tank raised his fist. "I'm in." Ripper added. One by one, every brother signaled their agreement, their loyalty, their acceptance of this new direction. The Brotherhood was evolving, and they were all willing to evolve with it. Crow clasped Wyatt's shoulder. "Welcome to fatherhood, brother. Welcome to having something worth more than your own life." Wyatt looked at Olivia, at Mia, at the family he'd found in a dark alley when a terrified child had begged him to be her daddy. He thought about the man he'd been just days ago, cold, isolated, convinced he was a monster incapable of anything except violence. He'd been wrong. "I'm home," he said simply. And as Olivia took his hand and Mia settled against his chest and his brothers raised their voices in approval, Wyatt Cross finally understood what it meant to be more than a weapon. He was a father, mate, a protector of the innocent. He was exactly what he was always meant to be. The Devil's Brotherhood would ride again, but this time, they'd ride for something bigger than themselves. They'd ride for the broken, the hunted, the forgotten. They'd ride as the shield that stood between darkness and those who couldn't fight back. And at the center of it all would be a ruthless alpha who'd learned that true strength wasn't found in violence alone, but in the courage to love and protect those who needed him most. His family. His purpose. His forever. The sun climbed higher over the compound, bathing everything in golden light, and for the first time in Wyatt's life, the dawn felt like a promise instead of just another day to survive. It was a new beginning. For all of them. Thank you for joining the pack today. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and tap the moon bell so you never miss the next Alpha Destiny. And tell me in the comments, who should we follow next under the full moon?